Right. Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us again. I'm here today with James Osgathorpe. James, thank you very much for taking the time to join me and give us a quick introduction. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, Adam, thanks very much for having me on. So basically, my background is specializing in embedded talent acquisition and RPO companies, particularly in technology space hiring and specifically around leading global sourcing teams. For the last year, I've moved in-house into big tech, working at Meta, the Facebook company.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much for the introduction. So, recruiter enablement. What does that mean to you? What is it in your description?
So basically, I think the way I try and conceptualize recruiter enablement is to think about it as recruiter experience. And the reason I do this for a couple of reasons. Basically, firstly, I think talent acquisition teams in recent years have been very accustomed to understanding candidate experience and have kind of set that as their guiding star, which I think is absolutely perfect. But what I think a lot of teams either don't think about or maybe don't prioritize is understanding that candidate experience is downstream from recruiter experience, basically, right? And so it's all very well having that candidate experience as the thing that you're aiming for, but you really have to have that recruiter experience in place in order that you can deliver a solid candidate experience. So when I think about recruiter enablement, I'm thinking a lot about how do your recruitment teams feel about the job that they're doing? Are they motivated? Do they have purpose? And are they set up basically to execute on your candidate experience goals?
I think that's an absolutely brilliant way of thinking about it. And you're right about the concept of downstream. I think about it in my house, like happy wife, happy household, and to an extent, happy parents, happy kids. So happy recruiters, happy candidates. Totally get that. Okay. A bit more practically then, what are some of the things that you've done to help to facilitate recruiter experience, good recruiter experience?
Yeah, good question. So I think really the angle that I approach this from and the experience that I have is mainly with the hat on of leading, like I said, global sourcing teams. And so I think a lot of what drives my recruiter experience or recruiter enablement kind of vision is a lot to do with giving talent acquisition teams a clear purpose that's linked to business success. And what you can see in that is the importance of breaking down silos, right? I think sourcing functions in particular in years gone by have been tended to be pushed to the back, treated like mushrooms, so to speak, keep them in the dark as it goes. And so I think breaking down the silos is the key thing. When you're talking about sourcing and recruiting teams, that's between your kind of talent acquisition functions. And then furthermore, between the broader talent acquisition function and the rest of the business. I think both the sources and the recruiters have to really clearly understand how the everyday actions they're taking impact or produce business outcomes. And so it's absolutely essential that everybody in that process understands that they have skin in the game for the success of the business. And that the things that are potentially kind of driving them apart from the business or driving them even apart within the talent acquisition function are kind of really broken down, so that you can really kind of increase and really put a rocket ship on kind of collaboration. I think there are kind of a lot of incentives in recruitment traditionally to drive sources or recruiters on a very individualistic kind of pathway, even within the department. And so I think you have to try really hard to create alternative incentives for collaboration, and B, make it clear what the results of that are. And that kind of action leads to, in your analogy, happy recruiter. And as soon as you've got a happy recruiter, you've got happy candidates, because that's someone who doesn't mind kind of making difficult phone calls, pitching a company in a compelling way, and getting a candidate experience result, whether it's the end result that candidate's looking for or not. It's clear that the TA professional there is happy and empowered in their job, and the candidates kind of feel that.
So can you give us a couple of examples of things? So you're talking about like you've got to actively, like mindfully break down silos and do things to encourage collaboration or to force collaboration. Could you give us a couple of tangible examples of like initiatives, things that we should be thinking about doing in TA?
Yeah, for sure. So to give you a kind of sourcing perspective in particular, I think, but it's relevant for any kind of talent acquisition role. I think you have to empower people to have the tools and ability to gather and then deliver back to the business talent and market intelligence, basically, because I think the way that you build a kind of fulfilled sourcer or recruiter is to make them an expert in their marketplace. And as soon as you do that, you give them something meaningful that they can give to colleagues, back to the colleagues within TA or back to the business, that makes that sourcer recruiter feel like a true consultant. Yeah. It takes away that transactional nature. It takes away the any need for kind of smoke screens, smoke and mirrors, between TA and the business, and gives them a data-driven focus that that allows them to portray themselves as an expert within their market, within their role function, and within the broader talent landscape as well. And that really breaks down silos between TA and the rest of the business, because the one thing that nobody can argue about is data, right? And I think traditionally what you might have had before teams were really able to be empowered with broadly accurate market and talent intel is that they would be forced to rely on talent acquisition speak or deal with the business in a way that the business didn't feel was something that everybody can agree on and understand. Whereas once you give them that baseline kind of understanding and ability to analyze their market, analyze trends, analyze true talent insights, then you've got a level playing field. Everybody can interact with each other as a kind of true peer colleague, no matter which part of the process that they're in, and that automatically brings walls down between talent acquisition and the rest of the business. And coming from that kind of very heavy sourcing background, that market intel thing is a massive driver for me, and one of the first things that I would ever put in place. Any team that I'm leading that doesn't have that already in a robust manner, you've got to get that in place first.
Yeah, great. Okay, so thinking about recruiter enablement in terms of recruiter experience, breaking down silos and enhancing the communication two-way, making great use of data and market intelligence in order to become genuine business partners within the organization. So I really love that.
Absolutely.
James, thanks so much for taking the time to join me. By the way, one of the reasons, apart from your insights, one of the reasons I always enjoy talking to you is because your accent makes me think of happy holidays down in the Southwest.
I think, it's interesting because probably 12 years in talent acquisition and talking to people on the phone has rounded off my accent a little bit. But if you had caught me at the beginning of my career, I would have even more reminded you for sure. Fish and chips and ice cream down on the Southwest coast. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thanks. All the best.
Cheers, Adam. Thank you.